Hello and welcome to the show. My guest today is Jennifer Rasmussen. She's a college counselor at a high school, and she's here to give parents and students tips for the college application process, specifically into a four-year college. Now, I know some students choose to go straight to work or into a two-year college and transfer or to a trade school. But for the purposes of this show, we're specifically talking about the four-year college application process. We'll also talk about parent involvement and how involved parents should be in that process, especially with the college essay. We'll talk about that and more. Thank you for being here, Jennifer.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you because I think that we try to prepare our kids, our students, as much as we can for whatever path they take in life. Today, specifically, we'll be talking about a four-year college or a two-year and transfer into a four-year college. And I want to give parents an idea of when to start to have those conversations, but also focus on here comes junior year and what does that look like? And just try to give them the best tips they can to prepare for themselves and for their students. So thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you. There are some parents and students that think that freshman year they have to get going and get on this really fast. Really, freshman year is just about taking the courses that align with the student the best and then being involved in the school, getting the best grades as possible and being involved. Same way with sophomore year, but sophomore year can also be, let's start looking into the different type of colleges that are out there. What aligns with the student? What is the student looking for? What are the fun things that the student thinks about when he or she goes to college? So that's just an easy early beginning part of researching what's out there for colleges. And yes, you're correct. Junior year is a place where everything does start to come together. And I would say one of the main things in junior year is to really start understanding him or herself as a student. Again, what are things that maybe the student wants to do in a career? So starting from almost the big picture of a career. And yes, some people will be like, well, how does a student know that so early? And there are different career assessments that students can take. But again, getting to know him or herself, being involved in the school, and then at that point, really starting to pull together a balanced college list.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Then we're talking about the conversations that we have. The conversations I had with my son started really early. I mean, elementary school for sure. And he was just a kid who always talked about wanting to go to college. So I wasn't forcing the idea of a four-year college on him. That's what he wanted. That's what he imagined for himself. And I do remember one time him coming home from school and saying, Mom, college is optional. I never knew college was optional. I'm like, well, kind of isn't for you, because you've always talked about it. That's what our plan is. You can change your plan at any point.
Right.
But it is an option that we start to talk about pretty early. And maybe it's because, around here, maybe you've been going to WSU football games and that's your idea of college, or you have an older sibling who went to college, or you've gone to some of the events with your parents for alumni events. And what do you think is the time to start having those conversations or to start helping your student understand? Because if they don't have the habits, the study habits, and a lot of missing assignments and these things that happen when they kind of fall behind. Freshman year is a little late to start to enforce some of those habits so that they are prepared, because that's when it starts counting toward college.
So, I mean, I do believe it's a family decision, and it really stems, as you said, stems early on. Did both parents go to college? Sometimes they didn't. And then that's even a bigger motivator for parents, but also for the student to go on, and college is the goal. So with college being the goal, then yes, what do we have to do and to instill the good habits, the educational habits, the time management, turning in your homework? I mean, that's just, sometimes we look at that as being basics, but it is a big deal for students. So yes, the college going atmosphere is a big deal.
And I think there are a lot of teachers who do a good job of preparing students, particularly if your students is in AP classes. Right. Hunter had an AP teacher who taught them that college, just treat it like a job. It's 8 to 5, whether you have a class that day or not, whether you're out of class at noon. That way you're the one who's done with their work and it's not 10 o'clock at night and you're not cramming. And
Mm.
it's Monday through Friday, unless you have to dedicate a Saturday or Sunday. But Monday through Friday, looking at it like your job. And if hopefully students have had a job, before they go to
Right.
college and have a sense of that responsibility and contribution. I think that's, we can rely somewhat on some of the teachers and the mentors that we entrust with our students, with our children.
Mhm. Oh, I definitely believe that. And I mean, teachers, they're just such an inspiration, to students, and they are a big, big motivator for colleges, and to get to going to college, and also to help shape and form the student into the college going student too. I definitely believe that.
Well, you're a college counselor, and I can tell you this. The college counselor that I had never once had a conversation with me about the foreign language that I needed to get into certain colleges, the prerequisites I had to have for certain four-year colleges. It was never discussed with me. It wasn't part of what I understood needed to happen. And I think that that's true for a lot of students who aren't guided that way. So maybe it's about making sure that the student has access to the college counselor. And maybe that won't be guided or motivated by the parents. It might be motivated and guided by the teachers.
Right, right. And and that's the difference between a lot of high schools all over the US, is that there are some high schools that the students never see the counselor until the end of the junior year, beginning of senior year.
Mhm.
So it does become something where the student does have to start taking responsibility in that college going atmosphere. What do I need to do? How do I access the college counselor? And then the other thing too is there's so many resources on the internet. One of my favorite resources is the college essay guy, who has just many, many, many free resources for students.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about parent and student involvement and how involved a parent is, what your advice is about how involved they are once that junior year starts happening. And I just want to reiterate, we are talking specifically about college today because you are a college counselor.
Mhm.
I know a lot of students choose to go to trade school or go straight to work, whatever the case. But for the purposes of today's show, we're talking about college because we're talking to you. So we'll be back in just a moment. We are here back talking with you, Jennifer. You are a college counselor, and let's also share that you work at a high school that has like an 85%
Mhm.
entrance rate to college, to 4-year colleges, or sometimes 2-year into a 4-year college.
Correct. Yeah, 85% into a 4 year, and then the rest 15% is into a 2 year community college.
Okay, so we're, like I said, we're talking specifically about students who are making the choice to go straight from high school into college, however that looks, 2-year transfer or straight into a 4-year. Now,
Exactly.
let's talk about parent involvement. Now, let's start by talking about college essays because we hear a lot about those.
Hmm.
And I must confess that when Hunter, my son, was coming up in school, he's a good writer. He's a quite good writer, but he um, would show me something, and he got to where toward sophomore, junior, especially when he started AP English, where he would cover the whole keyboard with a folder and only allow the up and down arrow to show. Because
Oh,
I'd want to turn on the edit tracker and like, oh, what about this? And what about this? And
right.
he had to really say, Mom,
Mhm.
he has thanked me for some of the guidance I've provided him, but mostly he had to say, this isn't your job.
Right.
And so when the college essay came around, that was completely his job. I had nothing to do with the essay. I didn't even read it till it was almost done. And so
Congratulations.
it wasn't easy for me as a writer, I will tell you. But he got into the college of his choice. It all worked out. But let's just talk about that because we do want, we want to help them put their best foot forward. We've been helping them with that their whole lives.
Right.
But this is really the time that we have to start to kind of cut those uh, that apron string and let them succeed or
Right.
not on their own.
Right. Yeah. It's really, really important for parents to, first off, help your student organize and in the process, But with that, organization does come taking a step back. Let the student, write about whatever he needs or she needs or is writing about. And because at the end of the day, when that essay is complete and it goes into the college admission representative will know if it's written by the student or by an adult or someone that's not the student. There is so much that is involved in the essay that the college admission representative needs to know about the student. And we just need to let the student write and be his or her own authentic self. And a lot of times the student and or the parent thinks that there needs to be this huge life event that the student went through. And that's not at all. What the college rep needs to know is just who is the student outside of the application, the activities and the courses. So only the student is really going to know that and be able to speak to that. What I say for the advice for parents is let the student write it. You can, if the student allows you to read it, then read it. But then take certain parts and question that part. How did you feel during that time when you went through that? How was that for you? What did you learn from it? Who are you today? What are you going to be in the future? Those are really good questions for parents to ask the student, but not to go into the essay and say, well, I remember when you were this and you did this, and then start changing and get their skills, their editing into the essay. Take your hands off the computer completely, but ask those questions. So then that's a reflection. And that's what the college representatives want to read. They want to read the reflected voice of the student in the essay.
And I think, too, those questions that you're talking about, those are really open-ended questions that help them evoke emotion or come up with more detail. Their details, not our details, but their details.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, that's just what they want. That is exactly what they want to learn from the essay. What happened? Talk about the emotions, any vulnerability through it. What did they learn? Who are they today? And how are they going to go forward with it?
Let's also talk about then the process of making the decision about colleges specifically. I think sometimes we have an idea of our students have an idea of where they want to go to college. Like I said, maybe they've been going to football games at a certain college for a long time. But, I can say from our personal experience, my son went into college as an English major and left with an economics degree. He changed his major about 9 times his freshman year. I freaked out the first couple times, and then I just kind of rolled with it.
Right.
I knew he'd find his place. That being said, had he known he would be an economics major, he probably would have applied to different colleges. I think he always thought he'd go to school in Texas, maybe at Texas A&M. Didn't want to go to UT, which was a more arts type school, University of Texas. Now, Texas A&M would have been a great college for business, economics, that sort of thing. So sometimes things change. Freshman year is such a growth point, and you just make the best choice at the time for what you think you want to do at the time, or taking a look at the college overall and what it offers. Is it PhD taught mostly? Are they small classes? Do you want to go to a big school? Do you want to be at that Friday night football game with thousands of other people? Or are you really okay with an intimate setting at a smaller private college? All of these kinds of things. So it's hard to know what the student is going to want even by the start of their freshman college year. So how do you advise them to make those choices now? Because they have to start making those choices for their applications.
Right. So when I talk with the students about their college list, first off, we really need to make it a balanced college list. And what that means is, there's a reach, so there's a target, and there's probable colleges. And with that too, the probable are they're the foundation of that triangle. Okay. So we really want as many probable as possible. So when that comes back, when the admissions come back, that there's more yeses than obviously nos. But what those colleges really need to have is, can I see myself there for 4 years? What are the things that would make me happy that I can stay there if I change my major? So you brought up a really good point about the major, because there are some majors you do have to declare right when you enter the college. So for instance, like a lot of engineering, that's the major you have to put down. So with that, if I change my major, am I going to be happy there sophomore, junior, senior year? Do they have enough at that college where I'm going to turn around, and whether I'm an engineering student or I'm going into business or communication, what is it that's going to help me be happy and mentally healthy at that college? So that's where, when I am working with students, we're looking at things outside the major.
Now, one thing I'll say about that too, it might sound silly, but I think weather is a consideration.
Absolutely.
Lifestyle, because again, he was accepted to a college where it's known to rain a lot. And I
Right.
said, you've lived in the sunshine your entire life, and that will impact you. You want to consider that. The other thing we thought about was he was responsible for his spending money. So there was a particular school that was going to be quite more expensive for the cost of living. I said, you're going to pay 2 times more for a sandwich
Mhm.
at a restaurant or at a
Right.
deli or your movie theater ticket.
Right.
Well, you need to think about that because you're responsible for your spending money. So, and also proximity to your home. Are you a kid who might want to come, you think you want to go off and
Right.
be gone and only come home for the holidays, but if you're close to your parents and you want to be home more often, you might want to consider that, because if you're across the country, maybe it's not affordable or reasonable to think you'll be flying home very often.
Right.
What about college visits? Let's talk about that, because,
And
it's expensive to visit colleges, and it's expensive to even apply to colleges. I
Mhm.
know there's help available for students for that. But how important is the college visit, and how do you narrow down which ones you're actually going to physically visit? Actually, I'm going to take a break real quick and we'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to
Okay.
talk about how you narrow down the list of colleges that you actually physically walk on campus and visit. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, we're back finishing up, Jennifer. We're talking about college applications, and I wanted to touch on how you narrow down the list of colleges you actually physically visit, because you talked about the probable colleges.
Right.
I'm guessing those are the ones you might want to physically step foot on.
Mhm.
And then how do you decide which of the others you visit? And I mean, it's expensive, so we have to think about that when we're
Yeah. It's
visit the priorities.
right. And as you said, the probables, and then there's a middle of range of the targets, and then the reach. So a lot of the times, though, with the students that I work with, the reaches are going to be, the 1 to 24% admission rate. So there are many times that those students are not physically on the campus yet. Maybe they've been to one or two of them. And the students they're pretty understanding that they may not be accepted to those schools. So what they're doing is they are visiting the schools that they'd have a better chance, again, more probable, and that they're going to be happy there. And also it's affordable. So they have some criteria in regards to those colleges. Um, Sometimes students and families can, like you said, cannot get to all the colleges to see them. So they wait actually until their senior year when they start hearing back from the colleges to see which colleges they were accepted to. So, and then with that, how many they've been accepted to, what is the financial package at that point? Does it have the things that they really want in that college? And then it's almost a hurry up. We're going to go visit these colleges. We have a little time. There's a universal deadline. It's with May 1st. That has actually changed this last year because due to some other financial aid requirements. But long story short, there is enough time to go see those colleges senior year. If they can't step foot, then there's also there's virtual tours too. So every college will have all these virtual tours on their website. And I do tell students to make sure you're going on those virtual tours.
And so then that's a good idea. I hadn't really thought about the virtual tours. And were those as prominent before we started being virtual people in 2020, or it's kind of like they figured
Yeah.
out they gotta.
They definitely figured it out. So, so all colleges will have a virtual tour. Then there's companies that will go around and they actually have a better virtual tour. And that you can, their TV and they're interviewing students in the dorm rooms and then the food service. And you really get a great way to look at the college that way too.
Okay, so we have just like 4 minutes left.
Okay.
You want to have a list for those who are coming into junior year right now. That you talked about organizing your student, and that's a great way to be of help. What are the priorities for fall? And then what are some of the priorities for spring?
So for juniors, priorities in the fall are definitely get the best grades as possible, because the junior year could, with some colleges, be the last year that they're going to be looking at the grades and pulling that into the GPA. So get the best grades as possible. Make sure you're involved, and that college list. Be making that college list. Try to get in to see your counselor if you have that opportunity. You definitely want to make connection with your counselor at school. The other thing too is the type of the classes that you're in. Make sure that you're active, and so that the teachers know you, because some of these applications you're going to need the letters of recommendation, and they start in junior and senior year.
And also volunteer work involved in school events, making sure that you're part of the community. You can
Absolutely.
be a little league coach. You can help your little league coach when you grow up and help coach. You can umpire if you're an athlete. You can partner with nonprofits in the community, all kinds of things that you can do. And I know that that's a really important factor to make sure students are well-rounded. And that is an opportunity. If you haven't quite done enough of it, you could amp that up sophomore, junior year.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that the colleges are going to look at, that area, because they want, if they're involved during their high school year, that's going to give them, the college representative, a better feeling that they're going to be involved in the campus. Because when students are involved in the campus, they're more likely going to stay at that college.
And that's true too, because they want to have that involvement. They want to have retention.
Hmm.
Colleges are businesses,
Right.
and they
Right.
and we read all the statistics about all the different colleges for retention, graduation rate, all the things are factors. And a lot of times it might be based on, you can read about different professors. If you're really set on your major and you want to learn from a specific professor you read about or heard about from your friends when they went to certain colleges,
Right.
that's a way that you can do research as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I appreciate your time very much.
Yeah.
I think that the earlier we start having these conversations, obviously, that way you can even determine if your student has no interest in a four-year college.
Right.
What does that look like? Is it trade school? Maybe it is a two-year first. Maybe they want to work for a little bit. Maybe they want to take that gap year. Who knows? But if you're not having the conversation,
Mhm.
then how will you know?
Right. And just to always understand that the college admissions is always ever changing. So to be as open as possible to what's ahead of them.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you, Lisa.